What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Action Network podcast presented by DraftKings. I am your host, Chris Raybon. It's NFL Week 11. We got touchdowns for you from every game on the Sunday and Monday slate. Anytime touchdown selections from Sean Koerner, from Gilles Gallant, and myself. Last week, we hit on a few of them, but most of all, biggest of all, Koerner with Alec Pierce, Gallant with McBride, me with Jameson Williams, a 22-1 parlay. That was our favorite Sunday slate anytime touchdown. So 22-1, that essentially pays us off for the year. I think we do like 21 or 22 shows and hit a 22-1 parlay. So that's pretty good. Today we'll go through all of the Week 11 slate. We'll also get some parlays again set up for Sunday and Monday Night Football, as well as our favorite one yet again for the Sunday slate. If you want to tail, just look for the quick slip link in the podcast and video description, or go to actionnetwork.com/bet. Now, before we get into these touchdowns, I'll toss it over to myself for a word from our sponsor. The Action Network podcast has teamed up with DraftKings Sportsbook, where new customers can bet $5 and get $300 back in bonus bets if your bet wins, and 3 months of NBA League Pass. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings daily fantasy sports and have a shot to win cash prizes. To get started, use promo code ActionNetwork when signing up with DraftKings. Again, use code ActionNetwork when signing up with DraftKings and bet $5 to get $300 back in bonus bets if your bet wins, plus 3 months of NBA League Pass. The crown is yours. All right, Koerner. Nice call on the Alec Pierce. I know you were on that everywhere last week. He was overdue for a touchdown. You're up first with the international game in Spain. You got the Commanders and the Miami Dolphins. This could be a shit show. Who you got in this one?
Yeah, it's obviously going to be a shit show, but actually these are my two favorite touchdown props this week. So first up, I got Robbie Chosen or Chosen Anderson, whatever he's listed at your book, around plus 950. I was shocked to see his odds this high, right? Right, Raybon? Like, what the hell's going on? Because, last week the Commanders used Chosen and Treylon Burks, of all people, over Jalen Lane and Chris Moore as, the top three receivers with Deebo Samuel. But Burks broke his finger. He's already been ruled out. So expecting Lane specifically to take more of those snaps. But I also think that we'll also just see more Robbie getting an increase in snaps. He had 4 targets last week, just one short of the team high at wide receiver. Deebo had 5. So he's seeing snaps, targets, and we obviously know he has big play potential. So I'm actually projecting this closer to plus 650. And I think I'm being pretty conservative with his routes run rate. I have him like 35, 40%. He could easily be way above that, just given how thin this wide receiver room is. So love Robbie Chosen here to score. Usually never lets me down. Anytime I bet on him, it's like Jalen Naylor for Raybon. He usually comes through. So go with Robbie here. And then, oh my God, my favorite underrated tight end in the league, Greg Dulcich at plus 450. I heard Gilles talking about him before. He just wasn't a good fit in Sean Payton's scheme in Denver. So he's been kind of bouncing around with, the Giants in the preseason. And now he's on the Dolphins. And with Darren Waller out and Tanner Connor cut and Julian Hill, banged up, he's still questionable for this game. Dulcich has been operating as the clear lead tight end, had a 75% routes run rate last week. I love him as a prospect. I consider him like a dollar store TJ Hawkinson. And anytime he's had, opportunity, he's typically produced. So, he could operate as the number 2 target for the Dolphins here against a very shaky Commanders defense who's allowed 6 receiving touchdowns to tight ends this year. So, might want to wait and see if Julian Hill is actually out or if he's playing. But I do like Dulcich here at plus 450.
Yeah, Hill has been practicing on a limited basis so far this week. So probably it will be back, but I think Dulcich still fills that Darren Waller role. Mm-hmm. I think what would complicate it would be if they, elevate Tanner Connor again or something like that. I think he's back on the practice
squad. Would that be tougher to do? Because it's international. Would they, when's the latest they could do that?
They could still do it Friday, Saturday night, I think, just like any other.
Yeah.
It's just like you have to be a certain amount of hours before, but either way, I think Dulcich still operates as the lead tight end. He's clearly fit for that role, so I love that. And Robbie Chosen revenge game too, so like that call.
Yeah.
Gilles, Nice call for you on the Trey McBride. I feel like you've been going to that every week. Smart with Jacoby Brissett under center. But here we got the Panthers at the Falcons. Divisional matchup. This was a shutout in favor of the Panthers the last time out. Where are you going for touchdowns here?
Yeah, I think Drake London has to be the choice on the Falcons side. 4 touchdowns over the last 2 games. And one of the things about the Panthers playing a ton of zone, well, London has just an elite targets per route run against zone. There's only 2 wide receivers that actually exceed him that have run more than 150 routes, and that's Jackson Smith and Jigba and Puka Nacua. And it's difficult to get those guys at plus odds at this point in the season. So the fact that we're getting Drake London here at plus 125, really like that, especially coming off of that 30-0 game. I mean, last season he cooked them for 3 touchdowns in 2 games. So I think whether it's JC Horn covering him or not, like I'm not really too worried about it. I think Drake London is a good spot here, especially if you can get him at plus odds. But on the Panthers side, Raybon, you talk a lot about the rookies and having these kind of explosive games, and Ted McMillan hasn't really had more than one of those yet this season. I think he's primed for another one in this spot, much like the reason why Sean went with Alec Pierce last week, because the Falcons, they play so much zone, but they play the highest single high safety, highest rate in the NFL. And right now, the receiver that applies to on the Panthers side is McMillan, because he's got the highest targets per route run against single high. And I mean, every receiver metric, red zone targets, end zone targets, deep targets, snap rates, whatever, Tet's right up there at the top. So I think with the Panthers being road dogs, playing indoors, trailing game script, there's just a lot to like with him. So he's around plus 225. So I like Ted McMillan on the Panthers side and Drake London at plus 125.
Yeah, London's just been on an absolute tear, and I've been waiting for that McMillan game too. This is a good spot for it, like those calls. All right, next up we got the Cincinnati Bengals going to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. On the Steelers side, I'm not even going to get fancy here. I'm going to go with Jaylen Warren at minus 160. Still have a little bit of value here on this. This is my guy Stuckey's favorite anytime touchdown from the Action Network pod as well. He's been on a tear, and I totally agree with him here. Jaylen Warren, they're trying to get him more work. He's already been handling about 80% of the backfield carries over the past month. And Tomlin says, hey, we got to get him more work. And this Cincinnati defense, I know they're coming off a bye, but no Hendrickson. And they've given up the most fantasy points to running backs by a good, 3-4 points. 9 touchdowns on the ground to opposing backs, 4 more through the air. So I think Warren could get in the end zone either way here. He is going to be active in the receiving game as well. We know Rodgers likes to dump off those short passes. And then on the Bengals side, I'm going with their running back as well, Chase Brown at plus 135. There's a chance Chase Brown's odds should be just as high as Jaylen Warren's, because he might have to play the entire game. It really depends on Samaje Perine, who I believe missed practice on to start the week. We'll see if he progresses, but I think it's a high ankle, so he'll likely be out. They haven't been willing to give Brooks that many snaps thus far, and Brown, they've shown that they'll play him for the entire game. So I love getting him at plus money. I think he could close at minus juice in this one. So like Brown and like Warren, the 2 backs for the Bengals Steelers divisional clash. Koerner, Titans, Texans. This could be exciting.
The game we've all been waiting for, right?
Yeah.
Well, since we are facing the Titans here on the Houston side, I think we take advantage of that and invest in the Texans running backs here in some way, some form, because, Raybon, as you always allude to, like the Titans run defense sucks. They've allowed 12 rushing touchdowns to running backs this season. And last week I was really high on Woody Marks, and he had a really solid game, 80-plus total yards and a rushing score. So he's trending up heading into a cupcake matchup. So I think he's the clear favorite to score. And he's around like plus 110 right now. So like that. And I also think Nick Chubb could also score here too. He's closer to plus 200. So I thought, why don't we just parlay them together to kind of get like an anti-correlation boost? It's plus 575. So we're calling it the Woody and Chubb erection selection parlay. At 575, like sign me up.
Woody Marks, Nick Chubb erection selection. Got to trademark that one. Are we even betting anyone on the Titans, or are we just going to move on?
I think
that was kind of a mic drop.
Yeah. Well, after that one hits halfway through the second quarter, I also like your guy, Raybon, Chimere DK, around 4-1 to score here because he's operating as a full-time wide receiver right now. Had a 93% routes run rate last week. So I think even if Calvin Ridley returns this week, it's probably not going to impact DK that much. And he's the return man. He gets designed rush attempts. So he has multiple paths to score here. So, and I think he's had like 2 or 3 near touchdowns or touchdowns called back. So, he could have even more touchdowns at this point in the season. So I think he's sneaky here at plus 400 as well. But obviously we're all going to be watching for the erection selection parlay here.
Oh yeah, I mean, and then you got DK, which interesting. But yeah, I think he's almost got double the expected touchdowns in my model than his actual touchdowns. So yeah, I think he's a good bet as well. Jill, Bears, Vikings. What do you like in this one?
I feel like I could use a evergreen video from the last 3 weeks for this Bears team, because I'm just going to go back to Olamide Zaccheaus at this point. Every time he's over 4-1, I'm going to keep running it back. 20 targets over the last 3 games. Minnesota, they blitz a ton, play zone at a top 5 rate, along with playing 2 high safety at the highest rate in the NFL, which is good for Zaccheaus because against both of those defenses, he leads the team in targets per route run. It's also been a little bit of a short-range outlet for Caleb Williams because Williams, and I'm sure you guys know this when you watch the Bears, he is so off schedule and will improvise a lot, and he's just looking for some safety valves a lot of the time, and Zaccheaus has been that position for him. It's either that or Odunze, but I think Zaccheaus is who we want here, especially at plus 450. On the Vikings side, I'm not going to go with Jalen Naylor because now after he scored that touchdown, his odds have been steamed for this week. But, I mean, TJ Hawkinson was my initial lean. But now if I'm seeing Josh Oliver back to practice, I love him in this matchup. He's around 10-1. He's only run 33 routes this year, guys. He has 3 red zone targets and 2 touchdowns. Like, he has the highest targets per route run versus man coverages this season on the Vikings, and the Bears play man at a top 10 rate. So, again, he might only get like 1 to 2 targets, but they're probably going to be end zone targets. And with his ability to block, he's probably going to be out there in those goal line matchups and goal line stands. So at 10-1, I love him in this matchup.
Yeah, if the Bears are playing man coverage and give up a tight end to Oliver, they just weren't putting a man on him. That's probably what's going to happen.
Wide open.
Just sneak out there. I could definitely see it. They got the fullback back, so a lot of guys to kind of account for. You could get a big man to sneak out there. All right, let's go to the Giants hosting the Green Bay Packers. For the Packers, I'm going to roll with Josh Jacobs, 2 or more touchdowns at plus 230. Giants' run defense has been terrible, and Josh Jacobs is just a weekly touchdown scorer for this Green Bay Packer team. Their receivers somehow are injured again. I mean, after that Eagle playoff game when they were all dropping like flies and then they drafted a bunch of guys, I thought there's no way the Packers would ever be short on receivers again, but I mean, multitude of guys on the injury report. So got to go with Josh Jacobs in a game that the Packers should have in hand, although they don't tend to score until the fourth quarter. So maybe you can also go Jacobs' last touchdown as well. Wouldn't be surprised there. And for the Giants, a couple of guys. One is Gunnar Olszewski at plus 750. Now, he saw the snaps once Darius Slayton got hurt last week, so he saw about a 40% route rate. Now, Olszewski has seen some an end zone target and has seen some kind of valuable fantasy targets here. He also returns kicks, so he's in a good spot. They used him more than Ray McCloud last week, so that's good. And then another guy who's even longer, Isaiah Hodgins at 10-1. Now, he's a former Giant, but the fact that they signed him off the Steeler practice squad, that means he's on the active roster. Probably means they intend for him to play. And Green Bay does sometimes struggle with receivers with size. A couple weeks ago, remember that touchdown to Metcalf. So Hodgins could have a role here. Remember, Lil Jordan, or Lil John Humphrey, as Koerner likes to say, played like 100% of the snaps off the practice squad a few weeks ago. And then Ray McCloud did the same thing a couple weeks ago. So Isaiah Hodgins, sneaky here. Remember, he's been on this team before. New coach for the first time in a while. So maybe they try to get some of that old school magic going. And if Hodgins plays, his most likely snaps would come in the red zone. And we're talking about Jameis here, so this is not Russ. So anything could happen. So let's get Olszewski. and who probably was working on the practice squad with Jameis, and in the second, third team, and then Hodgins, who's been there before with Kafka and whatnot. So like both of those guys, sneaky if the Giants score a touchdown at all. If not, maybe you take some Packers defense too, because it is Jameis here. But Tampa Bay at Buffalo, Koerner. Could be some weather in this one. Who do you like?
Yeah, it could be pretty rainy there, but I got to go with somebody, right? So on the Bucs side, I'm going to go Tez Johnson at plus 280. He's just been playing super well with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin out. 4 touchdowns now in the last 4 games. He has a smaller frame, so he's probably not going to be a red zone target, but he doesn't need to score in the red zone. He could score from anywhere on the field.
Pretty sure he scored a red zone touchdown last week, no?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying we give red zone and end zone.
He's pretty nasty. He's nasty. I'm Antonio Brown kind of guy. I just don't sell him short in the red zone, man.
I'm just saying that it's the most predictive thing is like an end zone target, but he could score from anywhere. He can catch it and run for 50. That's my point. He could score from anywhere on the field. And did you see his celebration where he did the backflip? I swear he did like 2 backflips. He's an athletic freak, so I think he was a sleeper heading into the year that I didn't really know about, but he's really impressed me. And Godwin returned to practice, but he's still not expected to play this week, so don't let those sway you off of him. Love Tez here at plus 280, and then on the Bills side, I'm going to go Jackson Haas, the other rookie, at plus 500. Because it does sound like Dalton Kincaid's going to miss this week. He's week to week, and I don't think he's practiced yet. So I'm kind of ruling him out in my projections right now. But I think a lot of people are going to gravitate to Dawson Knox, who should step up as well, as always, with Kincaid out. But I think the rookie is sneaky here because he's been running similar routes as Knox when Kincaid was healthy, around the 30-40% range. But he has 2 touchdowns on the season to Knox's 1, and more importantly, he's seen like twice as many targets where, he's seeing a target on 22% of his routes, whereas Knox is around, 11%, which is what you expect. But, Haas could kind of fill in a Kincaid type role, especially when they get into the red zone. They're going to have, heavier personnel with 2 tight ends. So I think both Knox and Haas could be out there. We've already seen him score a couple times this year. So I like him here at 5-1.
Yeah, and the Bills got to get those tight ends going because, I mean, it's like the receiver room right now is just, everyone's kind of zoning in on them and, Coleman and not being able to beat coverage, and there's going to be a lot of blitzing. So, yeah, I like that. And Tez Johnson, two career red zone targets. He has never not scored a touchdown on a red zone target.
I meant end zone targets, heavily contested end zone targets is what I was getting at. But he could probably still catch those too.
Yeah, he doesn't look as small. He doesn't play as small as he's listed.
Yeah.
Chargers at Jags. So this is one where the Chargers go across the country, outdoors, maybe some humidity here. These games are always interesting. Gilles, who do you like for Chargers Jaguars?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't gotten the Chargers on this show in a few weeks, and I feel like now that I've gotten them, I can't not take a Rondé Gadsden in this spot, especially when I'm seeing him over plus 200. There's no way that I can listen to Sean talk about how awesome he is, the Darren Waller comps, and then see him at plus 220 and be like, man, I don't know if I see it. Like, especially because Wednesday, that was the big thing too. He's back full practice on Wednesday and practiced again today. I thought he might have been hurt from an injury from last week against the Steelers. But again, only 2 touchdowns this year, but just been a beast over the middle for the Chargers. Second highest targets per route run and yards per route run versus zone coverages. Jags play zone at a top 10 rate. They're 22nd in defensive DVOA versus the pass, 24th against tight ends. They've allowed 7 touchdowns to the position. So Gadsden, if you can get him over plus 200, grab him right away. This one might be my favorite of the week, though, on the Jag side, and it's Jacoby Myers. He's around plus 245, plus 250. Playing mostly out of the slot with the Raiders, I kind of expect him to slide back into that spot. He only played 44% of snaps in his first game there, but again, only like 4 days with the team. So I fully expect to see a huge boost in snaps and route participation. He was typically over 90% with the Raiders and even like that last year with the Patriots. And I think he should be pretty familiar with the Chargers defense at this point, playing with the Raiders the last few seasons. The Chargers, they play zone and too high safety a lot. So that's usually where Myers has actually thrived against with the Raiders. And he would usually see a target rate bump compared to when he was playing against man coverage. And then, of course, when you look down the line on this Jaguars receiver standpoint, Brian Thomas Jr., like he is back at practice, but he hasn't really been fully connected with Trevor Lawrence this year. He's just not been a good output for a wide receiver this year. So Jacoby Myers, it's not like they only gave up like, a 7th round pick. They gave up some good draft currency that I think they expect to use him. So anything over plus 250 or probably plus 230 for Jacoby Myers. I love that pick.
Yeah, it's a hard projection for the Jags, but I agree. I think Jacoby Myers, they probably want to get him involved. They're going all in here, and watching that, that precious. I mean, they had a chance to really kind of cement things, and they've just let some games slip away lately. So yeah, this is like a must win. This is the highest leverage game, I believe, playoff wise, like for both teams that we've seen all year yet. So this should be a really competitive game too. So I think Myers snaps bump up and Gadsden's a monster. Seahawks Rams. I'm gonna go with 2 revenge touchdown plays that I think are undervalued for the Seahawks. I didn't think I'd get here this year, but let's go with Cooper Kupp at 4-1. If they're ever going to try to scheme a guy a touchdown, and this offense, I mean, it can get cute at times because it's been so monstrous. It's Cooper Kupp. So you might see something weird around the goal line and maybe an end around, just a little one of those like one step slant type of deals. I think his only touchdown this year was like a 3-yarder. So like Cooper Kupp at 4-1, Horton's still a little banged up, and Kupp and Shaheed kind of split snaps last week. So Kupp's going to be around his normal season long route rate, around 70%. I believe in this one. Maybe people will shy away because of Shaheed, and just JSN's been playing so well. But I think this is a good spot for Kupp to get one. And then on the other side, let's go with Colby Parkinson at 9-1. It's like Rams touchdown roulette here. If you just pick your favorite tight end, I'm going with Parkinson. He's got the longest odds. 55% of the pass snaps Parkinson played a week ago. That was tied for 3rd on the team behind Adams and Nakua, tied with Xavier Smith as a 3rd wide receiver. And these tight ends have been all rotating in. The Rams have been playing a ton of 1-3 personnel. So all of the tight ends have seen a big bump, and they're all playing, 35 to 50% of the snaps. But Parkinson led the way last week, and he's a guy that's been kind of popping lately. They've been looking to get the ball to him. He can even make some explosive plays, so he doesn't need like a 5 to 10 yard target. Sometimes he can go for 15, 20, 25 yard ADOT and still bring it in. So I like Parkinson at 9-1. I think he's undervalued. All these Rams tight ends, you have to kind of bump up their projection based relative to their season long numbers, because they've been at this now for about 3-4 weeks straight of just playing a ton of 1-3 personnel. And I think you want to do that too against the Seahawks, who love to sit back and too high and play a lot of zone. So love the matchup for Parkinson in this one. Next up, we got the other NFC West divisional clash: Niners, Cardinals, and no Marvin Harrison, no Zay Jones, and we got Zay Weaver, we got Bocelli, Koerner. I mean, talk to me here. I know you got to be looking at one of these Cards receivers.
Yeah. I'll just cut to the chase then. I'm going with Xavier Weaver here at plus 750. Like you said, they're already without Marvin Harrison Jr. and Zay Jones. Suffered that season-ending Achilles tear, so they're very thin. Wide receiver,
too. He went on IR as well.
Oh God! Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. He would have been a sneaky bet here. He's always a solid red zone guy. So yeah, they're super thin. They'll probably run more 2 tight end personnel. So Elijah Higgins is also worth a look, but it looks like they lowered his odds quite a bit. So I think Weaver's sneaky here, and the player most people are going to go who when he scores a touchdown. But I'm not going to be that shocked if he scores, because they have no one else. And as Joel mentioned, Jacoby Brissett really elevates this passing game, so everybody's kind of more likely to score a touchdown. And Weaver, he's not like a good receiver, but he stepped up at times. And in preseason, he looks fine. So I think he's in a spot where he could see like a 40-50% routes run right here and catch one deep. So I think just at plus 750 for somebody that might be out there quite a bit. He's certainly worth a sprinkle here. But my favorite bet in this game is Kyle Juszczyk at 10-1. And I think I said last week, just anytime you can get juice at 10-1 or higher, probably worth it. The last 3 seasons, his fair price should be around plus 600, plus 700. Last week I gave him out at 13-1 as my spicy play on our touchdown segment on Action Playbook Live. And if you're watching that game, he nearly scored. He got down to the 1-inch line, and Brian Robinson Jr. ran it in right after that. But maybe they feel like, Juice is owed one, so he might get something schemed up near the goal line this week. So, and again, when I gave him out last week, Juice is the kind of guy where he's not going to get a dump off in the flat. He typically sees, targets downfield, broken coverage kind of play. So he could score a longer touchdown if needed. But I like Juice here as well at 10-1.
Yeah, scored in the last game against the Cardinals too, earlier
Nice.
this year. I think that was his only score, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he has 1 this year. I think he had 3 last year.
He scored in the last game against the Cardinals too last year. He scored twice in 2025 against the Cardinals already.
So his fair odds should be minus 300.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm doing the math right.
Automatic.
Okay, sign me up.
Yeah, it goes Christian McCaffrey, then Juice, then everybody else on the Niners. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Ravens, Browns. This total has been going down. Browns excellent on defense at home. Gilles. NFC North should be a hard played kind of the game here. The Ravens are desperate, but they're a little banged up, and the Browns aren't quitting yet. They're kind of getting injured guys back. So who are you looking at here?
Yeah, and the weather I think is going to play a bit of a part on this game too. Part of the reason why I think that total is going down. Yeah. So on the Ravens side, I'm going to keep it real simple. Mark Andrews right now is over plus 200. I completely disagree with that price. It should probably be closer to plus 160. 3 touchdowns over the last 2 games, all 5 this year, with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, and has shown even just since the start of last year, there's a decent sample now over the last couple of seasons where he fares against man coverage, and he's had a higher target rate, higher yards per run rate against man defense compared to zone. Leads the Ravens with 3 touchdowns versus man defenses this year. Obviously the Browns, they play a ton of man, ton of single high safety. And again, if the weather is going to be an issue, I don't want Rashad Bateman or DeAndre Hopkins. I want those short range options like Mandrews. So also, I would also say I brought up the Jacoby Myers part about being pretty familiar with that defense. I think Mark Andrews at this point has got this Jim Schwartz-led Browns defense figured out. I mean, he scored both games against them last year. He probably almost had a touchdown against them earlier this year, but then they just went crazy with the wide receivers. So Mark Andrews, to me, anytime you can get him over plus 200, he's an auto bet for me. On the Browns side, I was kind of fading him last week, but this week I like him in the spot. I actually took him when they played the Ravens last time, and that's Cedric Tillman. He's around plus 550, and I bet him in week 2 when they played him. Got super lucky because he got a touchdown off of a tip pass. But I still like him again in this matchup because the Ravens, just like the Browns, they play a lot of man, a lot of single high safety. And when he came back from injury last week, I thought it was really encouraging to see him still play 73% of snaps. He saw an end zone target. He usually typically sees a bump in targets versus man coverage. He caught 2 touchdowns this season versus man defense. So Browns being huge home underdogs, even with the weather, I think they could be throwing a lot in the second half. So I love him in this spot around plus 550.
Yeah, I think he is sneaky, whether or not, he's just a guy who, Jerry Jeudy went off last week, so probably gets a lot of single coverage this week too. So good spot for him. If the Browns can get it in the end zone. Big if, but if they can. It
is a big if.
Yeah, speaking of the Broncos are hosting the Chiefs, and they've looked really shaky. Ended up, our guy Troy Franklin ended up hitting for us, I think on the show last week on Thursday, and that was just it after he scored. So this Broncos team, a little bit shaky here. I'm going to go with their running back, RJ Harvey at plus 121. Kind of the truck, but there is some uncertainty exactly how much he's gonna, play, how much of the workload for Dobbins he's gonna assume. But I want to get a guy like Harvey in this spot because the Chiefs have just given up really nothing, to receivers and tight ends compared to running backs. Most of their touchdowns this year have come against running backs. They're going to play a lot of man coverage and do different things that are probably going to, kind of confuse Bo Nix. So I don't really want to venture into the Broncos pass game. Harvey can catch one, but there's a chance he does see that normal Dobbins workload. Already was starting to see more work in the red zone as well. So like him. And then on the Chiefs side, going with their running back as well. The Broncos, they've 2 touchdowns to wide receivers all year long. It's really been the running back show if you want to get a touchdown against the Broncos as well. We saw Genty score last week. I believe Pacheco's going to miss. Early in the week, Reed said he needs some more time. So I'm thinking Hunt gets another one of these massive workload games. We saw it, going into the bye. Thought Brashard Smith would play a bigger role than he did, and he was just around his normal season snap rate. And Kareem Hunt was the guy, getting the work. And, Mitchell was inactive. Clyde Edwards-Helaire mixed in for a few snaps, but Hunt should be as fresh as ever coming off the bye. So like both backs in this Chiefs-Broncos divisional matchup. We'll get to our favorite Sunday anytime touchdown parlay presented by DraftKings in a moment. Remember, we hit the 22-1 last week. But before we continue, don't forget, sign up for Action Pro for real-time pick alerts from experts like Sean Koerner, Gilles Gallant, myself, and the entire Action Network squad. Plus, you can access our pro projections powered by Koerner and our predictive analytics team. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro and get $20 off when you use the promo code POD20. That's POD20. So don't miss out on the best bets at the best prices. Visit actionnetwork.com/pro and use promo code POD20 to get $20 off a year of Action Pro. All right, before we get into the Sunday night and Monday night primetime slates, let's run it back with our favorite Sunday daytime, anytime touchdown parlay presented by DraftKings. Again, last week we hit the 22-1 without Pierce, Trey McBride, and Jameson Williams. Koerner, you're up first. Where are you going for week 11?
Yeah, I'm going to go with my guy, Greg Dulcich here at plus 450. The Dolphins are really banged up at tight end, and Dulcich is sort of in the Darren Waller role right now as the lead tight end. He was a third-round pick just a few years ago. My comp for him is TJ Hawkinson, and he's produced whenever he's been given a chance, and he's still just 25, entering his prime. So I think it's a good spot to buy in on Dulcich at plus 450.
Joe, where are you going?
I'm going to go with Jacoby Myers. I think he's going to make a big impact against that Chargers defense, and I think him and Trevor Lawrence are going to connect and find him in the end zone.
I'm going to roll with Greg Dortch at plus 270. Love Dortch because running a backfield snap last week, a short yardage backfield snap, and got in the end zone. They love to run with him, and they also will have to use him as one of their top 3 wide receivers in this spot. So he's a very efficient guy, a smaller guy that is not always going to play a ton of snaps under normal circumstances, but this is a game where against a bad Niner defense, they could unleash him. So love him at plus 270. You parlay Dulcich, Jacoby Myers, and Greg Dortch anytime touchdowns. You get 66-1 parlay odds on DraftKings. That was our favorite anytime touchdown parlay for Sunday afternoon, week 11, presented by DraftKings. All right, let's get into Sunday Night Football. I'll have a write-up on this one on the Action Network later in the week. Lions going to Philly to take on the Eagles, who, there was no scoring in that game last week. Now we got them back on primetime again. So if you bet anytime touchdowns, I hope you had, Devontae Smith and Josh Jacobs, because you didn't have those guys. You were very, very kind of lonely with your bankroll there. But Koerner, who do you like for the Lions-Eagles Sunday Night Football clash here?
Yeah, I'm going to go chalky here with Amon-Ra St. Brown at plus 130. Last week Dan Campbell took over the play calling duties, and I think it's going to help elevate an already elite Lions offense. And it was actually the first game all season they had an above average pass rate over expected. So maybe Campbell wants to be more pass heavy is one of the takeaways I took from that. But I think, he's going to elevate the offense. Granted, this is a much tougher matchup against the Eagles than the Commanders, but I still want to invest in their upside here and go the safe route with Amon-Ra. And yes, I didn't go with Isaac Tisslaw, so yes, he's going to score a touchdown here. Just putting that out there.
I definitely thought about it, but I'm going out there too. But Jill, I'll let you go first. Where are you going?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it real simple, just going with Jalen Hurts, especially when you can get him at plus odds. You know that Detroit's going to play a lot of man coverage. There'll be scrambling opportunities for him. There's chances there could be a DPI in the end zone. He could get a tush push there. So I feel like he's a nice little anchor leg for this parlay.
What's that? You say Detroit plays what? Man coverage? I think that's AJ Brown's theme music, squeaky wheel, plus 140. I mean, come on. Like, they're going to, at some point, they're going to have to get this guy the ball. They can't let him squeak and just, make a scene for too long. And this is a perfect matchup for it. Man coverage, Lions defense, pretty shaky, 13 touchdowns allowed to opposing wide receivers. That is near the top of the league. And, Detroit, only 5 touchdowns allowed to running backs and only 5 allowed. So 5 allowed to tight ends, 5 allowed to running backs, and 13 to wide receivers. That is a nice little ratio there. I think that makes AJ a little bit more likely here. They've given up 18 passing touchdowns on the year as well, have the Lions. So like them to give Jalen and AJ a reason not to beef for at least 1 week. But you parlay these 3 pretty chalky picks, if I must say, together. Amon-Ra, Jalen Hurts, and AJ Brown. At DraftKings, you get 11-1. So still pretty juicy, pretty solid, parlay for 3 chalky picks. And I could see all these guys getting it done here. Monday Night Football, Cowboys at Raiders. Koerner, who are you looking at in this one?
I'm going to go chalky again here with Jake Ferguson at plus 180. As you mentioned on our projections pod, this is just a really good spot for Ferguson against the Raiders defense that, plays zone at the 5th highest rate. Ferguson tends to see a little bit more work against zone coverage. So he's like popping in my model. He's in my top 5 in my fantasy rankings, and I'm showing some value on him here to score it. So plus 180, show a little bit of value here, have it, projected closer to plus 160, but this is a good spot for Ferguson.
Oh yeah, Ferguson. I mean, I think he's only been out of my top 5 like once in the past few months. Like, he's just been a monster this year. That kind of would have came out of nowhere a little bit. We knew he was still hanging around, but I mean, I don't think anyone saw this season coming. Gilles, Ferguson playing like the guy you're about to pick.
Yeah, you want to talk about chalk? Brock Bowers right now at even odds at DraftKings. I'm going to add him at this point. I almost thought about going with Trey Tucker in this spot just to be loyal to my guy, Dr. Nick Giffen, in the RotoDoc era here. But I just think Brock Bowers is on another level, and I think he's going to score a touchdown against this Dallas defense that is not stopping anybody.
Yeah, and love Ferguson, and I also love George Pickens, and that's who I'm going to go with at plus 150 now. Ferguson tears up zones. Dak is really tearing up zones. But George Pickens has just been unreal against zone coverage this year. 5 touchdowns against zone coverage. That is just unheard of for a wide receiver. Usually it's the tight ends and the backs doing more of the damage against zone. But George Pickens has really been a monster this year for the Cowboys against zone coverage. And those 5 touchdowns, I believe. Let's see, is that the league lead? Let's see. Yeah, George Pickens tied with Emeka Egbuka for the league lead in touchdowns versus zone, according to PFF. Pickens number 6 in yardage versus zone as well. So you think of Pickens as more of a guy who's going to just beat man coverage, but he's so athletic that he could just kind of run away from zone. So love Pickens in this spot against this Raider defense that plays zone at a top 5 rate. So if we go Ferguson, Bowers, Pickens, another kind of chalky one, but still 13-1 parlay odds. So if you want to try to get some plus EV parlays, I think these are pretty good because all these guys should be, they're very likely, and the scheme and the matchup kind of helps them out a ton, and you're still getting, double-digit odds when you parlay these 3 together. 13-1 for Ferguson, Bowers, and Pickens. As I mentioned, we'll add these anytime touchdown parlays in the Action app. You can follow them at the Parlay Express account if you haven't already. That's where all of our long shot bets are posted. And while you're looking at Parlay Express in the Action app, be sure to sign up per Action Pro. It's the only way for you to get the best bets at the best prices with immediate notifications when action experts post their picks. You can get $20 off right now by using promo code POD20 when you sign up for a year of Action Pro. That's going to do it for our NFL Week 11 touchdown show presented by DraftKings. Thanks to Koerner and Jill for joining me. You can find Koerner on X at @_oddsmaker. Jill is at GDAWG5000. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the Action app. Be sure to follow Playbook as well on X. It'll build you bet slips at the sportsbook of your choice. Subscribe to the pod if you haven't already. Until next time, let's get this money.